Welcome to YouTube Pro Skater Stats. We all played the Tony Hawk video games when we were young, but have you ever wondered what a professional skateboarder's stat points would be in real life? In this video breakdown, we will be taking a closer look into the video parts and tricks that define careers, and see if we can assign stat points to 10 categories that cover a broad spectrum of skateboarding. In this week's video breakdown, we will be taking a look at the career of professional skateboarder Antwuan Dixon. Antwuan has formed a career around skating big rails and gaps, with one of the most natural and effortless style skateboarding has ever seen. Antwuan had a breakout video part in Baker 3 and became a skateboarding icon virtually overnight, also turning pro for Baker around the same time. Later in his career, Antwuan would go on to ride for sister company Death Wish, and have a video part in Baker has a Death Wish, as well as receiving a professional model shoe for the brand Supra Footwear. Antwuan currently rides for FTP skateboards, Stray shoes, and has his roots with Transition Skate Shop. Antwuan has had quite a few cameos and tricks in friend sections or montages, but for today's breakdown, we will be examining footage from full video parts. To get started, we will first be looking at the rail stat point. Rail will be a blanket term to cover multiple types of obstacles, including flat bars, handrails, shootout rails, and various others. Antwuan skates rails well, with a tendency to nollie into most tricks. Antwuan doesn't really skate much variety when it comes to the types of rails, mostly sticking to 8 to 14 stair handrails, but the tricks showcased are performed well and are relatively hard, especially for the time. Nollie heel crooked grind down Wilshire is impressive even to this day. When it comes to rails, Antwuan gets a 6 out of 10. Next, we will be looking at the ledge stat point. Ledge will cover a multitude of obstacles, including flat ledges, shootout ledges, hubbas, as well as various others. Antwuan's ledge skating is a bit more diverse than his rail skating, with a mix of hubba spots, school yard tables, and even bump to ledges. Antwuan does have some repetition in tricks with nose slide variations, but often the flip in or flip out changes the trick as a whole. Although there is more variety, overall the tricks are not quite as strong, although visually nice looking. Antwuan gets a 5 out of 10 for ledge. The next stat point we will be looking at is manuals. Although very likely more than capable of performing some interesting manual tricks, Antwuan generally stuck to jumping, and thus, not much footage is available of showcasing manual tricks. Antwuan gets a 2 out of 10 for manual. Now we will be taking a look at the stat point representing flip tricks. Flip tricks will cover flat ground, as well as gap skating. When people talk about Antwuan, often the first thing they mention is his effortless style, and nothing showcases this more than the way he skates exceptionally large gaps. Without understanding how hard some of these tricks truly are, you would think they were easy watching him perform them. Antwuan also has a very diverse and interesting bag of tricks across different parts, with nollie shove down the 5 flat 5 always standing out to me, as well as everyone's favorite, heel flip down the Wilshire 15, and so close to the rail. When it comes to gap skating, Antwuan gets a solid 8 out of 10. The next stat point we will be taking a closer look at is balance. Examples of balance would be holding long grinds or long manual tricks. Antwuan's balance and control is probably very good, but there is not much footage to show this. With most handrails being pretty standard length, ledge tricks usually on the ends of ledges, and basically no manual tricks. Because of the lack of footage, Antwuan gets a 2 out of 10 for balance. This next stat point we will examine is transition. Transition can be anything from DIY spots, mini ramps, bowls, or even vert if the skater uses a trick in their part. Antwuan, riding for a skate shop called Transitions, ironically has no transition tricks in video parts. Antwuan gets a 0 out of 10 for transition. This stat point represents the speed at which the skater tends to skate at, although this is possibly the hardest to truly measure, as angles, spots, and tricks all play a major part in the way someone skates. Antwuan skates a more slow and steady pace in contrast to some of the previous skaters we've had showcased. Most of the spots do not require an over-the-top amount of speed, and the ledge lines shown still look great, more smooth than fast, however. Overall, Antwuan gets a 5 out of 10 for speed. Now we will look at the stat point for pop. Examples are notable tricks over tables, tall ledges, or rails that require you pop high without the ability to gap out. The best example of pop I could find for Antwuan was switch frontside tail slide heel flip on the courthouse stage. But aside from this, most of the spots Antwuan skates generally do not require an over-the-top amount of pop. Antwuan gets a 4 out of 10 for pop. The next stat point is switch. Switch will represent all other stances a skater can ride their board, including fakie and nollie. Antwuan is very good in all stances, skating quite a few handrails and gaps nollie. There is also a great showcase of switch tricks down some pretty large gaps, and possibly still one of the biggest switch heels to this day. Antwuan also skates fakie a good amount, mostly flip tricks, but there are some fakie ledge tricks in the mix as well. Extremely diverse and proficient, Antwuan gets a 7 out of 10 for switch. The final stat we will be looking at is creative. Creative is meant to represent the approach skaters take, the trick selection they utilize, and the spots skaters film tricks on. When it comes to creativity in spot selection and trick selection, Antwuan is mostly lacking in this way, sticking to skating the hot spots in California with the popular rail and gap spots. However, Antwuan's style might not be creative in a traditional sense, but it has inspired thousands of skaters who have attempted to emulate him for years to come, and anything that powerful on a skateboard has to be commended. Just for the style alone and the impact it has had on skateboarding, Antwuan gets a 5 out of 10 for creative. Antwuan Dixon gets a combined 44 out of 100, putting him currently at the number 4 spot overall. Every skater has a story, and in the case of Antwuan Dixon, this doesn't change. Antwuan rose to stardom faster than almost anyone ever has, becoming an icon overnight. But with this, the challenge of maintaining this position so quickly earned was seemingly too hard to handle, and thus Antwuan had countless legal issues over the years, which may have possibly kept us from even more influential skateboarding parts that Antwuan could have made a reality. Antwuan seems to be in a great spot now, still skating and putting out content on social media regularly. With the respect and support of all of skateboarding behind him, I too wish him nothing but the best, and will always root for him to succeed. Only time will tell where they will end up as we continue to deep dive skaters across different generations and eras. All views and opinions are meant solely for entertainment and are not meant to truly represent the skaters featured in the videos. Skateboarding is way too complex to represent in any written way. If you watch a video part and get stoked to skate, that's all that matters. Leave a comment below for what professional skateboarder you would like to see next. See you next week.